They said I wasn't welcome at my own mother's birthday. My sister smirked. My dad turned his back, and I stood outside like a stranger to my own blood. But the moment her boyfriend looked at me and said, "She's my boss," everything stopped. Eyes widened, mouths dropped. The black sheep they tried to erase. Turns out I was the one holding it all together. Funny how the truth always crashes the party. Especially when it's wrapped in a power suit and heels. You want betrayal, family drama, and sweet revenge. Buckle up. This story starts at the front door. They slammed in my face. They say blood is thicker than water, but mine felt diluted the moment I started thinking for myself. My name is Elena Mitchell, 30 years old, single, and CEO of a thriving digital marketing firm in Manhattan. But in my family's eyes, I'm still the rebellious daughter who refused to take the safe route. I didn't go into nursing like my mom wanted. I didn't marry my high school sweetheart like my sister did. And I didn't stay in our small hometown like everyone expected. To them, I became the difficult one. To me, I just wanted more. It wasn't always like this. Growing up, I thought we were close. I was the middle child sandwiched between my overachieving big sister Grace and our baby brother Tommy, who could do no wrong. I worked hard for attention, for praise for the smallest acknowledgement that I was good enough. But Grace always won the spotlight. Straight A's homecoming queen, married to a local lawyer named Ben, by 25. My parents treated her like royalty. I was the wild card. When I got into NYU, they didn't celebrate. They warned me. Don't let the city change you. But the city did change me. It lit a fire in me I didn't know existed. I worked through school, interned at tech startups, and built a company from scratch. Now, at 30, I have a penthouse, a personal driver, and contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Still, none of that impressed my parents. They didn't understand my world, so they dismissed it. Phone calls became monthly, then quarterly, then barely at all. I sent Christmas gifts. They sent silence. I showed up at Grace's baby shower last year with designer gifts and a smile. She rolled her eyes and said, "Wow, must be nice to have all that free time." I smiled back and said nothing. Then came Mom's birthday. I hadn't been home in 2 years. Life got busy. But when I heard they were throwing a big family BBQ to celebrate her 60th, I thought maybe this was my chance. A chance to reconnect. To finally be part of something again. So, I cleared my weekend, bought her a limited edition pearl necklace from Tiffany's, and even brought along a surprise my boyfriend, Marcus. He's charming, kind, and happens to be one of the top investors on Wall Street. I thought showing them a bit of my world might bridge the gap. But when we pulled into the driveway, the silence was immediate. My dad looked up from the grill and frowned. Grace raised her eyebrows like I was an unexpected delivery. Mom stood there blinking like she didn't know what to say. No hugs, no smiles, just that awkward air of, "Why are you here?" "I thought this was a family event," said, with a light laugh trying to break the tension. "It is," Grace replied sharply. "We just weren't expecting extra guests." Marcus reached out to shake my father's hand. "Hi, I'm Marcus." Dad ignored him completely. "We don't need any show-offs here," he muttered under his breath. My heart sank, but I kept my head high. We walked toward the backyard anyway. I was determined not to cause a scene. Maybe they were just surprised. Maybe I should have called first. But deep down I knew this wasn't about that. It never was. As we reached the patio, I overheard Grace whispering to her husband. Why does she always have to make it about her? Marcus squeezed my hand. You okay? I'm fine, I whispered. I've been through worse. Then came the bomb. As Mom opened her gifts surrounded by family, I stepped forward and handed her mine. Happy birthday, Mom, I said with a soft smile. She barely looked at the box. You didn't have to, she said, voice flat. I forced a laugh. Well, I wanted to. It's been a while. Then Grace chimed in with that signature smirk. You know it's sweet of you to drop by. But we've kind of moved on, Elena. You made it clear you didn't want to be part of this family when you left. I froze. The air turned cold. Left, I repeated. I left to build a future. I left because no one ever believed in me. Mom said nothing. Dad took a bite of his burger. No one defended me. Then Marcus stepped in. Elena didn't just leave, he said calmly. She built an empire. She's my boss. And one of the smartest people I've ever met. Grace's jaw dropped. Wait, boss. And that's when it happened. Every eye turned to me not in dismissal, but in stunned silence. The girl they'd cast out, the one who didn't fit into their neat little mold, had become something they couldn't ignore. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like justice. Still, the damage had been done. They didn't want me there. Not really, but as I stood there watching them squirm, I realized something. Maybe I didn't need to belong to them anymore. Maybe the family I fought so hard to earn was never truly mine. Grace never liked losing control. That was clear from the moment Marcus mentioned I was his boss. The way her smile tightened, the way her eyes darted around to make sure everyone heard. I could practically hear the calculations running in her head. Who was I to show up and steal the spotlight at her mother's party? Your boss, she said again louder this time. You're joking, right? Marcus just smiled politely. Not joking. Elena runs one of the top digital firms in New York. I work in private equity. We partnered on a few major projects. Grace looked at me like I'd grown another head. So, now you're dating Wall Street, too. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. I shrugged. We met at a networking event. One thing led to another. Mom finally chimed in, her tone light, but laced with something sharper. Well, it's good you're finally settling down. Maybe you'll stop chasing all those big city dreams. I smiled tightly. I'm not settling down, Mom. I'm building a life. That's silence again. Just then Tommy walked in from the house, holding a tray of drinks. Hey, Elena? He greeted casually, then nodded to Marcus. Beer or soda? Marcus smiled. Soda's fine. Tommy handed him a bottle and leaned over. Glad you came, he whispered low enough for only me to hear. I've missed you. I gave his hand a squeeze. Tommy was the only one who never picked sides. He had a quiet strength, one I always admired. But even he couldn't shield me from what was coming. Dinner dragged on with forced small talk and awkward silences. Every time I tried to join a conversation, Grace cut me off when Marcus asked about family vacations. Grace made a snide comment about how I never came. And when I mentioned work, Mom rolled her eyes like it was all too much. I was done playing polite. As the sun dipped low and fairy lights flickered on, I walked over to Grace, who was standing near the grill, swirling wine in a crystal glass, like she owned the place. "Can we talk?" I asked. She looked surprised. "Now. Yes, now." She sighed, set the glass down, and followed me to the side yard, away from the others. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "Why do you hate me so much?" Her expression had barely changed. "Hate's a strong word." "Okay. Resent, then. You've resented me since I left." "Why?" She crossed her arms. "Because you left like the rest of us. We're holding you back. Like you were better than all of us." "I never said that." "You didn't have to." I shook my head. "Grace, I left because I was drowning here. Everything I did was wrong. Everything you did was perfect. I couldn't breathe under your shadow." She scoffed. "You always made it about you. Every time." "No," I said firmly. "You made it about you. I was just trying to survive. I was the middle child, Grace. I got what was left after you and Tommy. And when I finally found something that made me feel like I mattered, you all treated it like a phase." Grace's lips parted, but she didn't speak. I pressed on. "Do you even realize how hard I've worked? I didn't get handed anything. I built my life from scratch. And I kept trying to come back here, hoping you'd be proud. But all you've ever done is remind me I'll never fit your mold." Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, regret. Then she looked away. "You don't know everything, Elena." That stopped me. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, then said, "You think you were the only one under pressure. Try being the golden child. Try living up to expectations you never asked for. I didn't choose this role, you know. I played it because someone had to." I stared at her. "So, what now? You're the victim." She looked back at me, and for the first time I saw something human in her. Something cracked. "You think my marriage is perfect? Ben cheats on me." My breath caught. "What?" Grace nodded slowly. "Has been for over a year, with a girl from his office. And I stay because if I leave, Mom will say I gave up. Dad will think I'm a failure. The same people who worshipped my wedding will pity me." I didn't know what to say. Grace laughed bitterly. "So yeah, maybe I've been hard on you. But you got out, Elena. You found something that made you happy. I never did." The silence between us was deafening. I took a deep breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have listened?" she asked. "Maybe not." We stood there for a while. The backyard sounds laughter, clinking glasses felt like they belonged to someone else. Another life. "I'm sorry," I said softly, "for assuming. For leaving and never looking back." "I'm sorry too," she said, "for making you feel like you didn't belong. We didn't hug. We weren't those sisters. But the wall between us cracked just a little. Later that night, as Marcus and I got ready to leave, Mom pulled me aside. "You caused quite a stir," she said flatly. "Maybe it was overdue," I replied. She stared at me for a long moment. "You've changed." I had to. Then I walked away. In the car, Marcus took my hand. That was intense. I looked out the window, watching the house fade behind us. Yeah, But I think it's the first time they actually saw me. 3 days after the backyard barbecue, I was finally starting to feel normal again. Marcus and I were back in the city, surrounded by the familiar sounds of honking taxis and the comforting clatter of sidewalk cafes. I buried myself in work during the day, and at night, Marcus cooked while I vented about everything from Grace to Mom's passive-aggressive jabs. It felt good to exhale after holding my breath for so long. Then the phone rang. It was Mom. I stared at the screen, heart skipping a beat. She never called unless something was wrong. I picked up quickly. "Elena," she said, voice trembling. "Your father's in the hospital." I blinked. What happened?" "He collapsed at work. The doctors think it was a minor heart attack." My mind raced. "Is he okay?" "They're keeping him overnight. They're running more tests." I was already grabbing my bag. "I'll be there in 2 hours." Marcus drove the entire way. I didn't say much. I just kept replaying the last time I saw Dad quietly sitting at the head of the table, nodding while everyone talked over him. He never said much, but when he did, it always carried weight. I'd been so caught up in my battle with Mom and Grace, I hadn't realized how tired he looked. When we arrived, the hospital room was quiet. Dad was asleep, hooked up to monitors. Mom sat beside him, looking older than I'd ever seen her. Grace was there too. Arms crossed, eyes red. "Hey," I whispered. Grace looked up and nodded. "He's stable now. They're doing more tests in the morning." I moved closer to Dad. His hand looked pale and frail under the fluorescent lights. I gently squeezed it. He stirred, then opened his eyes slowly. "Lena." Tears welled up instantly. I hadn't heard him call me that in years. "I'm here, Dad." A weak smile spread across his face. "You came back." I bit my lip. "Of course I did." "You scared us." He exhaled deeply. "I'm fine. Just a little tired. Doctor says I need to slow down. You should have slowed down years ago," Mom muttered, brushing his hair back. "But no, you had to prove something." I glanced at her. "Mom." She sighed and stood up. "I'm getting coffee." Once she was gone, Dad looked at me more alert now. "There's something I need to talk to you about, Elena." "Okay." He looked at Grace, who stood up immediately. "I'll give you 2 a minute." When she left, he reached for my hand. "I need you to hear me out." I nodded slowly. "I'm listening." "There's something I never told you." He began about the business, about the family. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You remember the property we sold when you were in college?" "The small hardware shop, yeah. The one Grandpa left you." He nodded. "What you didn't know is that we didn't sell it because of the market. We sold it because I was in debt. Deep debt. What I made some poor investments in the early 2000s. Got caught up in the boom, then the crash hit. I was too proud to tell anyone. I used the property to cover the losses. That's when things changed." I sat back, stunned. "Why are you telling me this now? Because the debt never really went away. I've been hiding it for years, shifting things around. And now, I might not have much time left. Your mother doesn't even know the full truth." My head was spinning. "What does this have to do with me?" "I put the last piece of real estate in your name 5 years ago." "What?" He looked ashamed. I was trying to protect it. From creditors. From everything. I figured you were the only one strong enough to handle it. I shook my head in disbelief. Dad, you can't just... There's more. I looked at him, bracing myself. There's a man named Raymond Sutter. He's connected to some of the debt. If he contacts you, don't engage. Call our lawyer immediately. Promise me that. Is he dangerous? Dad didn't answer right away, then finally said he's persistent. That's enough. I swallowed hard. Okay. I promise. Just then Grace walked back in. Everything okay? Dad gave me a look that said not now. I stood and forced a smile. We were just catching up. We stayed at the hospital until midnight. When Dad fell asleep again, Mom insisted we all go home and rest. I offered to take Mom back, but she waved me off. Grace and I ended up riding together. We didn't speak for a while. Then she asked, "Did he say anything strange?" I hesitated. What do you mean? She glanced at me. I don't know. Just... He seemed off earlier, like he was holding something back. I stayed silent. Elena, she pressed what? Aren't you telling me? I looked out the window. I think he's more worried than he's letting on. That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Back in my apartment, Marcus waited up for me. I filled him in piece by piece about the hidden debt, the property, the warning about Sutter. You think this guy will actually come looking for you? Marcus asked, brows furrowed. I don't know, but I have a feeling things are about to get a lot more complicated. Sure enough, the very next morning I got a call. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then the voicemail came in. Elena Whitmore. A gruff male voice said, "You don't know me yet, but we have unfinished business. Your father owed me. Now that debt's yours." I replayed the voicemail 3 times. The voice was low, scratchy calm, in the most unnerving way. There was no threat, no yelling, just cold certainty. Your father owed me. Now that debt's yours. My fingers trembled as I hit delete. Marcus leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. You should call the police. I shook my head. What am I going to tell them? That a stranger left me a creepy voicemail. He didn't even say what the debt was. Then call the lawyer. Your dad must have one. I don't even know which one. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. Elena, you can't let this go. That guy knows your name. He has your number. You could be in real danger. I nodded slowly, trying to tamp down the rising panic. I'll figure it out. But I need to talk to Dad again first. He wasn't telling me everything. At the hospital, Dad looked worse. His face was drawn, and dark circles ringed his eyes. Mom stood at the window talking in hushed tones with Grace. When I walked in, she turned and frowned. You again? Nice to see you too, Mom. Dad smiled faintly. Elena. Everything okay? No. I got a call. His expression changed instantly. From Sutter, I nodded. He said the debt's mine now. Grace looked between us, confused. What debt? Dad exhaled, slow and heavy. Elena, I told you not to engage. I didn't. I just got the voicemail. But I need to know what he wants, Dad. I need the whole story. Mom crossed her arms. What's going on? Ask your husband, I snapped. Dad sat up straighter and looked at Grace. You should leave the room. No, Grace said firmly. I'm staying. If this affects the family, I have a right to know. Dad closed his eyes. Raymond Sutter used to be my partner. Back when I was trying to save the business, I borrowed money from him off the books. I thought I could pay it back before anyone found out, but the interest kept growing, and when I couldn't pay, he started making threats. Mom's face went pale. You put us in danger. I protected this family, Dad said, jaw tight. I sold everything I could to keep him at bay. But when I ran out of things to sell, I transferred the last asset, the warehouse lot, to Elena's name. Why me? I asked again. Why not Grace? Why not put it in a trust or something? Dad looked at me, tears in his eyes. Because you're the only one I trust to handle it. You've always been stronger than the rest of us, Grace scoffed. So, I'm just the family screw-up, Noha said, voice breaking. But you were too close to Mom. Too protected. Elena, she always saw the cracks. I didn't know what to say to that. Does Sutter know I have the deed? I asked quietly. Dad nodded. He's resourceful. He'll come for it. Then I'll go to the police. No, Dad said firmly. If you go to the police, he'll retaliate. He's not the kind of man who plays fair. Mom finally spoke, voice hollow. You should have told me. Dad looked down. I was trying to protect you. No, Henry. You were trying to protect your pride. She turned and walked out. Grace followed silently. That night I pulled out the manila envelope Dad had given me years ago, the one he told me to keep in a safe place, but never open unless it was urgent. Inside was the property deed, some legal documents, and a handwritten letter. Elena, if you're reading this, then I've failed to keep the past from touching your future. I know you're angry. I would be too. But everything I did for the family. I thought I could fix it alone. I was wrong. Please don't trust Raymond. Don't try to outsmart him. He doesn't play by rules. If things get dangerous, there's one more name. You need Daniel Everett. He's the only one who ever stood up to Sutter and lived to tell the tale. I hope you never need this. But if you do, be careful. Love, Dad. Daniel Everett. I searched the name online. It was harder than I expected. No LinkedIn, no Facebook. But one article stood out. Real estate developer wins civil suit against alleged loan shark. The article was 5 years old. It described a quiet legal war between Everett and a man known only by initials RS. It had to be Raymond Sutter. The article listed a business address for Everett in upstate New York. I called Marcus. We're taking a trip. Everett's office was a modest brick building near a vineyard. Inside it smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. A receptionist led us to a room where a man in his late 50s sat behind a wooden desk. Ms. Whitmore, he asked, standing to shake my hand. I've been expecting you. I blinked. Your father and I go way back. He told me you might come looking for answers one day. Did he tell you about Sutter Everett? Nodded eyes, serious. Raymond's not just a loan shark. He launders money through property deals. When your father took money from him, he unintentionally signed into a partnership that went far deeper than he knew. Why did he put the property in my name? To protect it. Sutter can't legally seize it if it's never been tied to the original debt. But now that you're the owner, you're on Sutter's radar. What can I do? Everett leaned forward. Don't sell. Don't sign. Don't respond. Make him come into the light. He's a ghost in the business world. He can't hurt you legally unless you let him. And if he comes after me anyway, I'll help you, Everett said. But you need to be smart. Watch your back. Back in the car, Marcus looked at me. You okay? No, I whispered. But I'm done running. The next morning, I got another voicemail. This one wasn't calm. You think hiding behind lawyers will save you, Sutter growled. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I saved the message, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid. Raymond Sutter was done playing games. His next move wasn't another voicemail. It was a manila envelope, left on my porch, no return address. Inside was a single photo of Marcus leaving our apartment. Scribbled on the back, keep playing tough and he's next. My hands clenched so tightly around the paper, I thought I'd tear it in half. Enough was enough. That night I drove alone to the warehouse lot. The very land Dad had transferred to me. The only thing Sutter wanted and the only leverage I had left. It was raining hard. My headlights barely cut through the fog. I pulled into the lot and waited. At 10:32 p.m., a sleek black SUV pulled up beside me. A man stepped out. Raymond Sutter. He looked exactly as Dad described Gray's suit. Sharp eyes, a permanent smirk that made your skin crawl. You got guts, he said, approaching my window. I stepped out. My voice didn't waver. You threatened my fiancé. He raised an eyebrow. I warned you. There's a difference. I handed him a copy of the deed, not the real one. You want this? You're going to sign an agreement. You drop all claims, you walk away, and you never contact me or my family again. He laughed. You think I'd sign anything from you? No, I said. But you'll sign it for Daniel Everett. That got his attention. Right on cue, headlights lit up the other end of the lot. Daniel Everett's car pulled up. Behind it, a police cruiser. I figured you wouldn't come quietly, I said. 2 officers stepped out of the cruiser. One of them carried a folder, the kind filled with warrants. Everett walked over with confident calm. Mr. Sutter, good to see you again. Unfortunately, we've connected some recent threats to your voice. Turns out, leaving voicemails isn't very smart these days. Raymond's smile faltered for the first time. You have no proof, he growled. Oh, Everett said, holding up a recorder. I think the police will find this compelling, along with Elena's testimony and your latest little gift. The officers stepped forward, reading Sutter his rights as they cuffed him. He didn't fight. He just stared at me the whole time, cold and quiet. You'll regret this, he said. No, I said calmly. You will. As they drove away, I felt it, that knot of a fear inside me. It unraveled. For the first time since Dad fell sick, I could breathe. The next day, Dad was stable. He cried when I told him what happened. You were braver than I ever was, he whispered. No, I said. I just finally stopped hiding. Grace hugged me tightly, genuinely no longer resentful. Even Mom admitted I'd done the right thing. We met with a financial advisor. Dad's business wasn't beyond saving. Not anymore. And the warehouse lot. We decided to renovate it. turn it into a community center. Something good out of something that nearly destroyed us. As for Marcus, he proposed the following week. I said yes. We moved into a new apartment together, far from the shadows of the past. And that manila envelope Sutter left, I burned it. Symbolic, maybe, but it felt damn good. I used to think families broke all at once, but the truth is, they crack slowly, secret by secret, lie by lie, until one day they shatter. But healing, that happens piece by piece, and I finally started picking mine up. What would you do if your family handed you a legacy of secrets? Would you protect them or expose it all? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more real-life drama just like Family Story, My Husband, because sometimes the truth is even more dramatic than fiction. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a twist. See you in the next one.